you ever stopped to wonder why books exist in the 21st century when we have all the information in the world just a click away? Cell phones, computers, and televisions. Three essential tools for work, study, and recreation. Although we are exposed daily to an immensity of information, the amount of knowledge we actually absorb is infinitely smaller. We spend hours in front of monitors and cell phones processing information received from all directions, losing every day our ability to think and feel. We then have a blasé attitude, which is a term first conceived by the German sociologist George Simmel as a form of protection against overload by constant stimulation. But with time, since the individual reduces everything around him to an indifferent state of equality, he is attracted to that feeling of indifference and the consequent feeling of uselessness. Books, therefore, provide us the chance to disconnect from this chaotic world and dive into another universe. Reading offers the opportunity to rest the mind without stopping expanding it. And this, for me and all those other people thirsty for knowledge, is the greatest treasure we can find. What's up, everybody? I'm Isa Mamedi and welcome to this channel. If you are new here, don't forget to click on the subscribe button to join our community. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you find it valuable so that it can be recommended to other people. Lately, the number of videos and articles telling us that we should read a book a week has increased dramatically. Sometimes because we see a bunch of good content creators saying how reading a book a week changed their lives, we forget to question if it is really that good. We forget to ask if there are any downsides to such practice. So today, I ask you a question. Should you read a book per week? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below and don't forget to say why. In 2020, I saw the opportunity to resume a priceless habit, reading one book a week. I've always enjoyed reading. I like reading so much that I read a 400-page book a day when I was 14, until the point that my mother wanted to forbid me to read, just as parents today forbid their children to play video games as a form of punishment. However, by the end of high school and first year of college, the number of books I was reading decreased dramatically and was replaced by constant exposure to screens, which seem to dominate our lives today. Then, in January of last year, I set myself the challenge of reading a book every 7 days. It could be any kind of book, fiction or non-fiction. The first book I took to read was one that I had stopped on page 10 2 years ago. It is The Emperor of All Malays. In this brilliant work, which I recommend to anyone with an interest in medicine, with the precision of a biologist, the vision of a historian, and the passion of a biographer, an oncology traces a detailed biography of cancer, from the first records to the most advanced research, the latest discoveries and expectations for the future, paving the way for the demystification of this much feared disease. I'm not here to review a book, but to discuss the need for reading and how often it should be done. I started then, reading 30 pages on the first day, which became 50 on the second day. And by the end of the first month, I was reading about 100 pages daily, which took 1 hour and 40 minutes of my day. But I still haven't answered the question, should you read a book a week? Briefly, the answer is no. This might come as a shock to you guys, since on YouTube itself there are dozens of videos telling you to do exactly that. And maybe you're thinking that it doesn't make sense, right? I've just said that I've read one book a week for the past year, and that reading is great, and now I'm telling you not to do it. Wait a minute, I'll explain. You don't necessarily have to read one book a week. If this reading frequency is the natural speed at which you consume a book, absorbing in at least 80% of the knowledge it gives you. Great, then keep it up. But if for do such a thing, you need to read in a hurry without really understanding and processing what you are reading, or using techniques like not reading all the words or scanning pages for important information, then don't read a book a week. Scientific studies show the importance of reading daily, not the number of books you need. You can sometimes read a 200-page book in 1 week, fully understand what it meant, and take the time to process and reflect on the information the author has passed through it. However, if you try to read a 600-page book in that same week, you may not absorb half of the knowledge and waste an excellent private mentor. When you have a bookcase full of books or a Kindle or cell phone flooded with books, you have several teachers at your disposal who require in return only your complete attention. Whether it's a fiction book or one that explains quantum physics, you have an author willing to pass on his knowledge and allow you to live in the world he creates in those pages. So don't waste it trying to read a book quickly just to fulfill a goal set by a culture obsessed with productivity, which often turns out to be empty productivity. Today's culture advocates the establishment of measurable and achievable goals. Finishing what we started is considered a victory. But our reading life should not depend on filling a Goodreads progress bar. That's because reading is not just an old habit to track. They say done is better than perfect, but in the case of reading, I totally disagree. Perfect is much better than done. Just reading for reading, without adding anything to your life, is the same as consuming the more than 34 gigabytes of information to which we are exposed daily. The indifference is the same, and the time you waste reading that book for which you had no pleasure, almost not absorbing knowledge, would have been better spent on the countless screens that surround us. However, reading a book a week does bring some benefits, but they are more related to building a habit than to learning. And in this context, it is better to set goals such as reading a reasonable number of pages daily, like reading 30 pages a day, or reading for certain times, 30 minutes a day, than forcing yourself to read one book a week. Sometimes, if you have discipline, set a goal of reading daily, regardless of the quantity, but rather the quality of the reading. Perhaps if I had read 20 books in depth in 2020, I would have learned more than from the 90-80 books I actually read. I, like anyone else who have ever tried to read one book a week, have read some of these books in a forced and lifeless way. And that doesn't make anyone a good reader. Good reading is the one that connects with you, whether entertaining, teaching, or questioning everything you believe in. It is the one that feeds your hunger for knowledge and leaves you hungry for more. And don't think that this connection occurs only with fiction books. The non-fiction ones, when they interact with desires, beliefs, in your daily life, many times they incite you more than good fictional stories. That said, my goal in 2021 is no longer to read one book a week, or almost two, as it ended up being in 2020, but to read as many books with quality as I can, because in this case, quality is always better than quantity. Doesn't matter if it takes me a month to read a book of 200 pages, as long as I really benefit from its teachings. In 2021, I won't waste any more good teachers to cross off a task from my schedule or to inflate my feeling of obsessive productivity with an almost empty air of information. What about you? Will you read a book a week in 2021? And if so, will you be willing to sacrifice quality just for the quantity of books you read? That was it for today. I hope this video gave you something to think about. And if you have already read a book a week for some time, share your experience in the comments And if you haven't done this yet, share your thoughts as well. I'd love to hear what you have to say, whether you agree or disagree with me. I just want to open a discussion because I haven't seen anyone doing that on YouTube so far about this topic. And I don't think that you should do something just because someone on the internet told you so. And if you know somebody else who would like this video or who needs to think about this, don't forget to share it. And again, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video.